Hello, and welcome to Corporate in the Middle, where we talk about the reality of product and product management and leadership in the trenches. As always, I'm joined by my co host, Kyle Johnson. Hello, Kyle. How are you?
Doing well. Happy to be here again.
I'm glad. We have a great topic today. I think it'll be super interesting and fun. Our guest today is Darren Schreck. Darren is a Scrum Master that we'll talk a little bit about. So why don't you introduce yourself, Darren?
Absolutely. Thanks you guys so much for having me. So yeah, I've been a Scrum Master, or at least in the Scrum world, for going on maybe 12 years now. Started early on as a business analyst right out of school, and jumped around quite a bit as this job usually takes us on to try different industries, but mainly in the business analyst and product side of the world. Did a little bit of project management, and that landed me onto some teams that were introducing Scrum and the whole concept of Agile and what that transformation led to. So got really pulled into that and then never looked back. So that's definitely taken me on a wild journey that I'm happy to be in front of you guys to chat about.
Very cool. As a product owner in the product space for a while, I've worked with a lot of Scrum Masters. So I thought it would be really interesting to talk about product through the lens of a Scrum Master. And so I think that's part of the reason why we brought you in here today. So let's just get so what I wanted to talk with you about is mainly about Agile and Scrum as it scales. One of the things that you have as part of your certifications is a safe certification. And there's a lot of, mixed feelings about safe implementations and how they go, but I really wanted to discuss what your experiences were like. And so let's talk about like your first initial experiences with scrumming a team and then getting to scale up. And so like the main question is, do you change your thoughts and processes as your agile teams scale, as your product scales? So if you would think about from the smallest teams that you've worked with in an organization to the multi-large teams, how you feel like you've dealt with your thoughts and processes as they go up.
Sure. So focusing on scale, I mean, on paper, it looks great. In practical experience, I definitely started with just the Scrum. I wasn't introduced to Safe until probably about 4 years after. So it's it's helpful if everybody else is aligned. If you have that shared vision, that goal, it depends. It really just depends on the product, the makeup, the support system, and honestly, not just your own teams, but how well of an understanding your framework is and the platform is, to scale. If everything's managed that way, because you can have other Scrum teams, including your own, that's follows framework and is everything by the book. But if you don't have what you need to be successful, then you can't scale in general. So that's one of the benefits I think I've learned and experienced going from just regular Scrum to Safe is uh, really stresses the coordination and effort that you have to have with people outside your own sphere of influence, your own teams. You really have to lean into the project managers, product folks on your side and get their buy-in and set up that type of large-scale framework so that you can be successful. Um, so what that looked like was I heard about this Safe thing that some folks did back in man, I want to say like 6, 7 years ago when I was working for an entertainment group, but didn't really participate in it. We went to some safe scaled agile events, so we got to kind of see how that side of the world does it on the company. And it was fascinating. It was cool to see everything up on boards and much more larger scale, but very organized, very labor intensive. But as long as you get the buy-in, people seem to really be helpful to that. Obviously, that was in person, and we've since switched to
Mm-hmm.
more of the virtual world and seeing just even that transition has been unique and I think taken on a new form of what scaled really looks like. But at a high level, it has been good and bad, depending on, like I said, the support structures you have. I think it depends on uh, how well you guys are building, like able to build out your product backlog, build out the roadmap. I mean, you're only as successful as the work that you have to do and the way it's
Yeah.
defined. And I think scaled agile is just taking it up a level to be more structured on a I would say quarterly type basis. They try to break those into product
Yeah,
increments.
product.
You know,
Yeah.
Scrum
Hmm.
is very much a framework, like, 2 weeks to a month, and that just breaks down within however you want to define that within your product increments within SAFe. And then all of the ceremonies that are added as a part of, that come with SAFe to try to help everybody stay on top of the projects that are getting done. So again, not everybody is successful. Just because I've been in a SAFe framework or SAFe environment does not mean we've been successfully able to plan quarterly events
Hmm.
or even have enough work to get us through that. It's much the opposite. So for what it's
So
worth.
I'm actually curious about that because you mentioned good and bad, and let's pretend um, the good here. How effectively have you been able, or has your teams, or have your teams been able to plan out a roadmap? Can you plan an entire quarter
Hmm.
to prepare for the safe ceremony to plan the iteration?
Uh, I think there's such a thing that you could. Have we? I don't think I've been on any team in my entire experience, and I've been running Safe for about 5 years. We've just never been that successful, and I think it's just the
Hmm.
nature of how big our work is and the constant change. I mean, I think that's
For one
it's
quarter, you're saying that you didn't. You're still kind of working your way through planning out an entire quarter.
the products or the features, the vision and all of that has usually been there, but the breakdown of requirements and how
Yeah.
that is going to play out at a team level, what that looks like to solution, has never, like, there's never been a full quarter's worth of backlog
Oh,
ready to go.
interesting. So I worked for a company. It was a software education company. They had about 30 teams, and they were safe. Um, I'm not saying that their implementation was great, but it's interesting to me to say that planning out a full quarter was a challenge. Is a challenge for you, because I felt like we were able to at least get. We used the funnel technique, right? So we would have the first two sprints essentially fully planned, and then it would start to go down in. We use story points as our measure, but like it would go down until like the sixth sprint of that increment in a quarter only had a couple of things that we thought we could plan. But I would say the upside is that we were able to successfully lay out enough work to get us at the minimum to like three to four sprints, and then after that we would adjust. And so I'm just trying to understand, are you saying that you are still challenged even to this day after multiple increments to be able to fill a quarter, or there's just a lot of turn in your product that creates like a chaotic environment for you?
I'd say both, depending on what's happening in that quarter, right? But most often, it's the situation that you explained. That's really been my experience on a
Okay.
consistent level. Of we can usually try to get a couple sprints ahead, but that's not something we can manage consistently,
Yeah.
and that's always been a goal. But that's where the high-level estimates are. We're estimating features. It's just something that we have a pipe dream for, and how much we think it's going to cost us and how much work is going to be required, but then how that breaks down. That's all I'm saying is there just hasn't
Yeah.
been a full-fledged, like, we can say here's where we think we're going to be in the beginning and the middle and at the end, and we can cover
Okay.
it, fill in the
That's
first two
reasonable.
sprints. But yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I think that the realistic like kind of situation is that, I think as agile leaders, we don't want to have planned out, you know 5-10 sprints ahead, right? and
yeah,
then and then work in a waterfall fashion where this is the things we're going to accomplish, right? That's generally not the purpose, and it's usually not useful, right? Because things change, especially if you're getting feedback from product and marketing, and you're introducing a feature that may be new, and so you want feedback, obviously, and you want to have a quick turnaround, and that could affect the sprints 4, 5, and 6 after you do 1 and 2. So I mean that's reasonable. I would consider that success in terms of your environment based on my experience as well. So I wouldn't say that you didn't make it. I would say that you are on par, I would think, with most, right? I mean, Kyle, does that seem reasonable?
I think it is reasonable. That's the way I've seen many expectations set for when you're going to plan the increment. Um, but here, I'm sitting here and thinking about what is the purpose of planning an increment,
Yeah.
right? it's to align everyone on what that quarter is going to deliver. If you are only sure about the next two sprints, and because of the level of volatility in the market, the business, the product, whatever it is, you can only say, okay, sprint three, we've got, smaller rocks, and sprint four and five, they're bigger rocks, and sprint six is boulders, right? Um, how effective is that planning? Because if you have to adapt to, whatever's changing in the next 4 weeks, how closely are you still aligned with everyone else who is planning that increment
Mm,
based on what your expected deliverables were? I mean, I'm not poo-pooing on safe here. I just question the value of planning in that way, and not because it's specifically safe. Hell,
yeah.
planning out, you know, uh, standard quarterly roadmaps, planning out 6-month roadmaps, 12-month, 18-month. Um, I have struggled no matter where I've been to ever have the direction and prioritization and focus in an organization to even see past what's going to happen in 3 months. Um, most of the time, after a quarter, there's a huge pivot, and for one reason or another, and it might be so that's great. We pivoted to something that's far more valuable, and we're going to go do that. I'm just saying I would never seen the volatility so low that that kind of planning can be super effective, but
I
that's
mean,
me.
you're obviously releasing products at the minimum features, right, Darren? So like I would like how do you address Kyle's comment there then? You know, you're effective enough to get work done. So like how would you rate then that planning technique overall? Would you say that yeah, this is the at this time this is the optimal way to go, or would you say no, there's probably something better out there, but we're stuck with what we got?
Uh, I think that comes down to a role breakdown of how SAFE is structured. I think the
Mm,
idea of trying to build out those roadmaps or those PI, quarterly planning to plan three out. The team at a team level where I exist most of the time is we're not as concerned so much as what we're trying to fit in it as much as being able to communicate what's realistic for us to be able to deliver. I think the conversations that at the product level of what we want, can we get this done? I think for me it's more of a well, we need to look at it and determine what the effort and what the scope is, and then I can let you know whether we can actually how realistic it is for us to do that or not. I think that's really where I'm living at. And so all of those discussions about what you guys decide and how you want to prioritize that, my job is to help the team and then the product owners to take that back to the product managers and say here's where the red line is, here's what's negotiable, here's yeah we could start it, but is what success looks like for that, what are you willing to take? So again, it's you really have to have those, and it's just the framework. Like I said, it's like
Mm.
Kyle, I agree with you. It's not one size fits all. It's really just how well you're able to make it work. You don't want
Although
to
I'm
put
thinking
too much
about it
pressure on them.
now, and I'm wondering if I just looked at it the wrong way. Um, if I think about safe, making the statement that you can't plan further out than 3 months effectively, I think maybe I'm more aligned with that perspective. If I think of
That's
it as a
that's
as a
generally what it is.
limiter, yeah, yeah. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good
I've
point.
got thoughts. I've got
Your
thoughts I need to mull
your
over.
I
point
mean,
about
even if you don't use
roles.
safe, you still need a roadmap, right? You still need to have
That's right.
delivery dates. You still need to be able to have something to
Oh,
negotiate with.
I don't want to get
And
started
that's
on
that
roadmaps.
challenge isn't, that you can only be as successful as Scrum or Safe if you have that. So that might
So
be a very loaded statement.
I want to jump in because I want to like take us a few steps back, and put within context all of the other stuff that we're gonna ask you. Um, Darren, why do you do what you do? The
Well,
career that you're in, why have you chosen it? Why do you continue to pursue it? How do you derive satisfaction from it? I hope I didn't
mhm.
ask too much.
No, I love it. I got into, I think, the business of wanting to initially, even as a business consultant, just through professors in college. I'll try to give you kind of how this, developed for me. I loved the idea of being able to learn about how different companies work together, specifically at a team level, at a people level. And so I thought business consulting was that's how it was pitched to me in professors. Like, here, you don't have to commit to one company forever. You can bounce around and just learn as much as you can. And so that's what I loved. And then it landed me into be, it didn't last forever just because of, life choices and everything else, the way what I needed in my lifestyle. But then I got involved into product, which I really love doing. I love being able to try to make, be passionate about a product and find ways to make it better. I think that was something that's always come natural to me. But these are skills that you can take in any field or industry, or just if you have those, you just have to know what your value is and where you add it. But then that led me to understanding more about Scrum and what a Scrum Master offers. And I've always been more drawn to the people aspect of it, far more than what we were building and why. I mean, yeah, that's great. It's awesome, especially if you really do believe in it and you believe in your management and all of that, the purpose of it. But we're always more committed to the industry than we are the company, right? Or to the trade than the company. And I think my commitment and passion has always been around the team and the people involved. And that has led me to, just dig. That's what helps you stay in the trenches. That's what helps pull me and motivate me to come to work. And because working with people, people bring their best and worst selves to work every day. And it's been the constant challenge of not necessarily trying to enforce or make us more Scrum. It's more of a, how can I help out my team? How can I, reach out to this person? How can I connect and help them make sure that they have what they need more? I think that's more of where I've seen the value in, is building up others. And that's been the reward for me. That's kept me here.
I like the idea that you're presenting around helping out people and being more people engaged. That's part of the reason why I love being in tech. Now, I don't have the connection to the industry of the company. I'm more interested in the product we're producing and the outcome. So similar but parallel, kind of like not quite the same what we're thinking. But I'm curious about how, as a Scrum Master, your teams are structured, and then how are you helping your team members? Because the one thing that I think is always true within a Scrum team is that every adoption of Scrum is different, and every role is different, and every company perceives that differently. And so, in talk to me a little bit about, like, from your perspective, what your current situation is according to roles and how you guys operate: product owner, product manager, developers, engineering manager, highly matrix, not matrix. And then tell me a little bit about what you think your ideal situation as a Scrum Master would be.
I mean, to a T, if we follow, I've been on teams where Scrum and not just teams, but management, in situations where they were just so sold out and, so bought into the idea of Scrum, and it's been flawless. Like, they've just been really, really good experiences. And then I've been in some where the challenge was right, the next level above. The dev managers just could not give up or relinquish their authority and command and micromanagement, and just the teams had no sense of autonomy. So I think Scrum Masters are all about being able to adapt and to be flexible. And I think it's so much, everybody that I've learned in the mentors that I've had and just my own experience, you've really just been able to take Scrum, or at least the main concepts of Scrum, and build that into the success of the team, mainly on, do they have a sense of urgency? Do they have that team mindset? Do they know that they're coming together around a common goal? Do they have what they need to be successful? And that's where the role definition comes in. Are they the ones having to create their work and define it and, pull teeth to try to understand what they're going to do just from a day-to-day? Or are they getting the support they need from the product owners? And then are the product owners are getting it? And lots of times in SAFe, I've seen that can be a limiting factor of even just how we're defining roles of a product owner or
Yeah.
a business analyst. Like, those two roles in and of themselves, we could talk, have different experience
Yep.
about how different teams define those. And a lot of times product owners aren't really attached to the product or even close to the product at all. They're just waiting. They're just glorified business owners who are waiting for a direction from product managers, and that's all they have. So again, there's all these nuances to it, but I've really tried to pull in the things that I think make Scrum or associates success with Scrum. And that's where I said, do they have a collective understanding of the value that they provide on the team? Do they know what they're building and why? Do they see the value? It's the buy-in. It's the coming. Do they trust each other? Do they feel like they know what they bring and offer? It's that psychological safety.
Yeah.
are they communicating? Do they know what's expected of them? And do they know that this is something they are depending on each other to deliver? If they're not, do they know how to communicate it? It's really just, do they have what they need to be successful? But you're right, every team is so different.
Uh,
Throw 2 week commitments at one team, and that's another thing, is it's so different. But some managers are like, this velocity must match this team's velocity, must match, the metrics
yes.
are constantly compared to, and that's a whole nother discussion that I love to geek out on. But if you're not using it to help the team mature and get better, um, which I think you can, despite all of the chaos around them, there's a lot that the team can control despite what they can and can't do to help them be successful and deliver on a regular basis. But I think a big
You
part of that
mentioned,
is people coming together. Go ahead.
yeah, you mentioned buy-in. I think buy-in is like
You
so
stole my
important.
question.
Well,
I
it's true.
like
I mean, we all,
I wanted to drill in as soon as you brought that up at the beginning, because you're like, oh, I've seen organizations where buy-in is there and it works flawlessly, but no, you go ahead, Johnny. You go ahead.
well, you could expound on what I can say. How about that? So, like with buy-in is very interesting. So, one of the things that I've found in my experience is that, you can bring these processes and procedures in to help organize a team. I think you bring in that human element that you're talking about. What can we do to make you successful? And then have the team say, okay, we're going to produce an outcome here, right? That's the best way to approach it. Not an output, but an outcome, and then say how we go there. But then the way that either other teams that are adjacent to you in a microservice or just in another place, or even the leadership up top, the way that they look at how software is produced can really disrupt a team and then demoralize them in a lot of ways, right? So if you get an engineering manager who just is a doer, which I've mentioned him on the podcast before, where I worked at a company where this guy he was super brilliant, knew everything, but the way he organized his team was garbage. And so he basically was like, all right, I want to do this thing, let's get it done. I know everything in my head. Goes to a junior engineer, do this thing. And the junior engineer is like, I don't know what's going on. Or even a senior engineer is like, listen, man, I know you want to accomplish this, but I don't know what you want to do to get it done. And he's like, forget it, I'll take care of it. And then he would leave the guy hanging, right? And then he would accomplish the goal, whatever goal he was going to accomplish, and management would clap their hands and be like, great. Now that kind of like buy-in into like, okay, hey, let's funnel this into the system. Let's make sure that this is prioritized. Let's make sure that these teams are empowered. Hey, Darren, you're my Scrum Master, for instance. Like, make sure that this team gets this done at the time period that we say, whatever the iteration is. Those have detrimental effects on teams, right? So if they don't have the buy-in to how you're operating, you're going to end up like causing a lot of friction and slowing down your team from actually producing any kind of outcomes. Like, Kyle, is that kind of like where you were going, or do you have a different perspective?
So I was thinking more buy-in from the organization, right? Because you need buy-in from top to bottom for things to just work. And I think so. I think this touches on what you're talking about. Um, but so I think I've shared my opinion in the past about Scrum success hinging on top-down leadership buy-in. But I don't want to talk about that now. Like you mentioned metrics earlier, and you said that's
Uh,
something that you want to talk about. I want to talk about buy-in there, because it's probably dumb, but there are like few defining moments in my career that I think about. Because this happened, I now do things this way. Not like, oh, I got some award and now I think I'm wonderful. Like, I made this huge mistake and I'm not going to make it again. Um,
uh,
this is so as I was operating as a product owner and scrum master, and I was on a team that was working in 1 week sprints.
that's crazy,
It
by the
was
way.
it was hectic, right? Every day it was a freaking ceremony. Um, and I said, you know what? I'm going to use metrics, and I'm going to show you that if we do it a different way, we can be more stable and predictable, uh, uh, and forecastable. So I think we ran 4 weeks. I think I took through the four week block, and ultimately looked at the data and showed that, oh no, I think I did this, it was probably over 6 to 8 weeks because I had to show multiple potential sprints, that our predictability at 1 week at a time had X variance, and our predictability 2 weeks at a time had Y, and 3 weeks at a time had Z. And the greatest delta was between X and Y. If we moved to 2 week sprints and did nothing else, we could increase predictability or reduce variability by this percent. I was so proud of myself. I made all these graphs. I was like patting myself on the back. Like, this is how you actually use numbers. Anyway, I presented it to the team, and they didn't care. Like, I was so excited that I was going to prove this is why you need to do things this way. And it fell completely flat. I had no support whatsoever from the team, and we made no changes to better ourselves because they didn't care to. So this brings me to buy-in. Darren, when it comes to metrics, when have you seen them actually used effectively? Scrum metrics we're talking about, actually used effectively. And potentially when they're not, how have you helped to garner that buy-in to use them and to ultimately use them toward continuous improvement? Sorry if that was just like a 5-minute intro to a
No,
That's
2-second
I
good.
don't.
question.
And I can understand where you might have felt defeated on that too, because when you get excited about something and you're passionate and it makes sense to you, and everybody's like, "This, I don't care about this. What do I
I
do?"
had after that meeting, I had to make a phone call because I was crushed
Can I
emotionally,
ask?
spiritually.
Yeah,
I was.
can I ask specifically when you say team, were you talking leadership or were you talking your internal team?
That was my Scrum team. I was operating as the product owner and Scrum master for that team, and so I'm talking to the developers and the dev manager and the manual testers and the automated tester, like everyone in the room. This is how we can be better. Anyway, this isn't my platform, Darren. I'm interested to hear from you.
Sure. So the whole concept of buy-in in and of itself stretches way beyond metrics and Scrum and the
That's what
conversation.
I
But
was kind of thinking. Yeah.
Hmm.
for the sake of at a Scrum level, on a team level, why the hell should a developer who's a freaking rock star and just wants to do code all day, why should he even give two craps about updating the status of whatever he's working on, or put in, heaven forbid, there's teams they're required to do hours, track their hours on something. Why should they be burdened with all of that, and what's the value behind it? I think one of the biggest selling points that I have, and I mean honestly, it's challenging. Some people have taken years for me to get buy-in for, and some, you try to, just like any other team building tactic, you try to know who your advocates are, biggest advocates are there, and who your influencers are on the team, and don't try to do it alone, because you're not meant to. You really have to check your ego at the door and try to build that unity around the team as well, and build their trust. Like, you can't get buy-in if they don't trust you, if they think you're just
Hmm.
BSing them. But the main reason for the metrics, at least that I've used it for, was to create visualization, to create transparency on the team, and it was really like, hey guys, this is for you. This is not for management. This is not, management isn't even looking at this. And I'd have to stay true to that, where I'd have to defend them. I was like, this is how you guys defend the work that you're doing. I'm not just asking you to check it, clock in and clock out. I want you to see that you're a valuable member to it, and this is how we help you guys see that. And things like story points don't mean anything, but over time, if they're being consistent, because it's only as helpful as the data is only as helpful as the consistency that
Hmm.
the truth behind it, and how practical it is, and how up to date and kept it is. So that doesn't mean that you just constantly hound them, because that's a great way to make disgruntled teammates, of just saying, hey, why don't you do this? Why didn't you update your story? It's more of a, you do it for them. That's one of the many hats you wear as a scrum master or leader. You walk the walk for them, and you show them, even if it's like, hey, I'm hearing that this is what it is, even if they're resistant to it. You do it anyway. You do it on the side, but you don't force it, and then you just show them and say, here's what good might look like. But again, everything tells a story. All those metrics might be snapshots in time. All those and here's how we build on each other. But the main thing is to be able to support them to be successful. Like a cumulative flow diagram could look freaking crazy, and it might not have anything to do with the team's maturity level. It could be because they had constant context switching, lots of scope creep, a lot of
Yeah.
changing priorities. All these different demands could change the nature of a metric in just 2 weeks, and really just fudge up all of the data behind it. But that's somebody who's not using it as intended could use that to really try to control and do the command and control of the team and say, you guys aren't delivering. But that's also our job as Scrum Masters, is to help influence how to, just as important as it is the team that to buy in, it's also important for the other management to interpret it correctly, not to
Hmm.
use those metrics to compare from team to team. Some do, some don't, but it still shouldn't stop your ability to shield the team and to drive value that way. But that's where I've seen the most success of just consistency to, where I'm at on some of my mature teams. They can facilitate the discussion too. I just have to bring up the cycle time metric and they see it. They're like, okay, well, yeah, we started out, say we estimated at a 5 at the beginning of the sprint, and it only took 2 hours of our time. It's helping them learn the right questions to ask. It's
Yeah.
intended to complement their work, not to distract them, not to be seen as a hindrance to them. It's really just to drive discussion and help them improve that way. But again, it can be used and abused, and some managers even just don't set Scrum Masters up for success. They're saying, I hired you to get them to buy into what I want them to do. And I'm not going to sugarcoat that. That sets them up for failure as well. So you really have to know what you're working with. But that's how I've seen success. That's how I like to use my metrics, is to provide that transparency and visualization. And it's only as successful as they're willing to do it. And sometimes, there might be sprints where they're like, guys, don't even worry about this. Is just, we're not even going to look at the metrics. You just focus on what you need to be consistent and manage your WIP limits. That this is also another thing too. Are you working on too much? Are you getting side conversations?
Yeah.
It gives them another visualization to advocate for themselves too, just as much as, to do their work.
But I think the one that I pulled from this, what I think is really the most important, especially when we talk about being in the trenches as, in the corporate middle, is really like finding your autonomy, right? Because there's a lot of things like when we talk about buy-in, business buy-in may not be the same as strategic buy-in, may not be the same as engineering buy-in, may not be even the same as your individual team's buy-in. But you as a product scrum leader, will say a scrum leader, whether you're a scrum master or a product owner, I think what you can do with your team is you can empower them exactly like you're talking about, cutting out all the noise. We've got a job to do. This is how we're going to measure the team. This is how you know you're going to be successful, because as the scrum master or the product owner, I'm going to help you by setting these examples for you, regardless of what any other team does, whether your company's in safe or you have multiple agile teams. I've found that the most effective way to be a great scrum leader is to drive that autonomy with your team and say, this is how we're going to be successful. And that's when I've seen, engineers really pop, and they're like, oh, I don't have to worry about the noise. My, corporate leader, he's terrible. He doesn't know what he's doing and he keeps context switching, but now I have something I can fall back on, like, hey, look, this is how we operate the team. It kind of solidifies it, gels it. So that's the main thing I would pull from what you're saying, is like, you can create your own autonomy. You can create your own success, even in an environment that's chaotic. And I found that to be pretty successful in my career as well. All right, Kyle, any thoughts on what he said? Because like I have many thoughts.
Um, well, okay, so give me a little more context. You're currently a Scrum Master, right?
Yes.
How many teams are you Scrum Mastering?
I've been on 2. I've been on 3 before, and for me, that's not ideal. You're just a
Yeah.
glorified facilitator at that point, but
So you're
I'm
you're
on
you're
2.
currently running 2 teams?
Yeah, I think you can be indispensable on one team, just depending on, the nature of the team and
Hmm.
maturity and all of that. But
He answered the
I've
question
seen
before
it
I
all.
could even ask it, man. No, I was like clearly walking too slowly to it, but I was walking to the question because I've heard A good Scrum Master can run 3 teams. A great Scrum Master can run 1 team. And I was curious to your thoughts on that and your current experience on how many teams you have, but you have 2. Um, what would you say is the maturity difference between the 2 and their willingness
Mm.
to, or like their openness and willingness to embrace whatever agile framework you're using? Because it sounds like you're using Kanban too,
It
by
did
by
sound
the
like
way
that
that
with
you
whip
Oh
you
yeah,
were
limits.
I
talking.
mean Kanban, Scrumban, more XP within there. Like there's just constant context switching. Yeah, for sure. What makes them? What's the difference between the mature and the not so?
Hmm.
It's not how well they can understand Scrum. I think it's more of how well do they hold each other and themselves accountable to get things done. Are
You're
because
talking my language.
a lot of the do they reach out to each other? Are they working in isolation or not? Do they what do their updates, on their when they show up at stand up, or just in general, how do they show up on the team? You know what I mean? I'm not just talking
Hmm.
about do they have their cameras on or not, because honestly, I've been in situations where I might be the only one who shows my face on camera, or I am the only one, and then even years go by, and I'm like, sometimes I haven't seen a teammate's face in over a year. So it's just insane, just the world we live in now, and that's a whole nother dynamic of how does a scrum master be successful if you can't see your team. But
Yeah.
anyway, the whole idea of success is, are they I mean, ultimately manager wants us to, are they delivering what they can, and are they delivering quality, and also that whole definition of success and quality could be very much different from a team versus a manager's. You know what I mean? They just want you
Hmm.
to meet the deadline and deliver. You don't care if it's a piece of crap or not. But I have seen the teams that are successful and are mature are the ones who want to do a good job. They're more likely to, they understand that they're on this. Otherwise, they'd be, an individual contributor or contractor or do their own thing. The ones who are on this team usually are team players. They'll play along, and they want to add value. And so not all of them are leaders, but they do want to contribute. And my job has been to help them, find that niche, find that value that they add among the team, and then the team, is accepting of that. But it really is to help them get out of their own way, to be able to come together, and that's how I've done it. And then obviously throw in the values and the metrics, and to the point where they can enjoy each other, they can tease each other, they can laugh, point out, take ownership, and how do they handle conflict? Do they trust each other, even though, do you know what they mean if they just say quit being such a jerk, or if they call you out, you guys, you just know you have that trust. It's such a relational mindset that, working with a bunch of incredibly smart engineers don't usually face on a day-to-day basis, and then
Yep.
trying to get them to speak up, most of them being introverts and me included. How do you get them to even communicate, or write a decent email, or try to advocate for themselves when all they want to do is help everybody? All of those things are great qualities. It's really just helping them hone their strengths, see what their weaknesses are, and help them build on there. But I'm getting so far off base.
No,
I'm
no, no.
hoping to
You're
explain
on
that
a
it's
roll
way
here.
more than it's way more than just the framework, right? But the framework does help give them some structure and some balance. The visualization, going back to your metrics, Kyle, does help them drive accountability and
Hmm.
have a collective sense of ownership together, that they can get behind and feel good about. You really should feel good about, what the metrics show, because that's all it is. It's just there to help complement the work you're doing.
I've okay. You've said a lot of things there again that I'm like, I just have all sorts of stuff to say about it. But I'm gonna stick with one thing that I think like really hones in on what you're talking about is engagement, driving engagement with your team, whether that's engaging each other or engaging the product or engaging you as a product leader. Like if your team is engaged, that really sets off your entire successful path, right? I've been on teams where engineers are highly engaged. They're like, yeah, I'm not on camera all the time, no big deal. But guess what? I'm asking questions. I'm doing these things. Hey, look, I'm calling out, like you said, I'm calling out these guy, partner A. Hey, Dev A, you need to do this in order for us to reach it because we have a goal, holding them accountable, asking questions. That's what really drives success. I'm a firm believer that that product and project management and everything in this product leadership space is like 80% people management. If you can get people to be part of your, like vision and the stream and the things you're doing, like you're almost going to stumble into success. Like everything else comes a lot easier. Like the gears are greased. It's so good. But if you have friction in the team's not mature enough, team is bogged down by the business. Because I've been on teams like that they're not engaged, they're never on camera, they never talk, they never respond. You ask them questions, they're giving you one word answers. It doesn't matter how good your processes are. It doesn't matter how good your tools are. You're going to end up with way more friction in order to be successful. And so everything that you're saying is like right up my alley. Like I've never in this post-COVID era been really that concerned with people not being on camera. I'm more concerned that you are actually engaging with the conversations that we're having, whether it's on the meetings that we're doing, in our communication channels, like taking advantage of our ability to communicate. That to me, I would rather have an engineer that is not as smart, maybe not as sharp, maybe not a 10Xer, that is more engaged than someone who is a 10Xer and never talks to anybody.
I
You
think
want
I
your
think
Rudies
that
on
is
the team.
huge. What's that?
I said you want your Rudies on the team.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you're
100%,
sure he
man.
is.
I agree.
Yeah, and I think I don't know. Maybe it's a difference in appreciations. I think that that statement that you made is lost on some critical individuals because when I look at like all the team members I've worked with, I have found the most success with those people that are engaged, even if they're not the fastest or more experienced
Mm-hmm.
developer. The fact that they spend the extra time and that engagement, like what does engagement means? It means I care about X, right? They care about what you're talking about. They care about the problem you're trying to solve, the way you're trying to solve it. They care about the customer. Any of these things that they actually, that consideration is far more valuable in the long term
Far more
than
valuable.
someone's like speed to get something done. Because I have seen things get done fast and not solve the problem. And
Mm-hmm.
and that is not helpful when you can get something done a bit slower, but it comprehensively solves the problem because you spent more time thinking about it. Like when you care about something, you think about it in your off time. You're not only thinking about it when you're told to, right? Those are the things that you're thinking about when you're in the shower trying to like, oh, this is a tough problem, but I love the problem. I want to figure it out. Um, anyway, yeah, I think that's really critical.
Yeah. So Darren, you're like you sound like you're in a place where you have a lot of engagement, right? Is that a accurate statement at the
On
moment?
my teams, I do, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, outside of
But it,
this
it
is the whole
hasn't it
thing is where
hasn't
you
come
can.
without. It's taken a long time. It's not come without pain and sorrow and challenges and everything else.
On average, so that's fair. On average, how long does it take you to get to that sweet spot
Hmm.
of like trust and engagement with your team?
You're sneaking in my question this time, Kyle.
Oh, did I? Shoot.
No, 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 no. I'm just giving you shit. I'm giving you shit. Go ahead.
Honestly, for me, it it's not ever really been an issue. I mean, I you can kind of go if you've been in it long enough and and you know what value you have, and you have the humility, you have all the traits there. You have the emotional intelligence, you have the mindfulness, you have the understanding, you know how to listen, like all of the communication types, people building skills you would need first and foremost. You can kind of go into a good scrum master can go into any situation and engage like, okay, here's what I'm working with. Here's who my allies are. Here's what I know I need to do. But then it's just consistency after that. So I mean, within the first few months or definitely the first year, but that's only half the battle or a fraction of the battle. You got to get the team to believe in each other too. It doesn't matter how much they
Hmm.
trust me. And I've seen them do that where they're like, guys, we better do this. Otherwise Darren's going to do the X, Y. I mean, just to get to a point where they can have fun and relax
Hmm.
with each other. But it doesn't matter how confident I am and how much trust they have in me. It doesn't mean that it doesn't help them be more confident. It doesn't build their ability to be able to handle conflict or pressure or tough situations because it's such a character revealing line of work as well because of just how challenging. Um, I mean, I guess you could say that about any industry or any type of line of work, right? But there's a lot at stake in the work that they do, And some people just want to do that. It doesn't mean, like you said, a level of engagement, it doesn't mean that they don't care, but they just might not value communication as much. They might not value wanting to speak up. They might just want to be more of a, you tell me what I want to do and I'll do it and I'll do a better job than anybody else on my team.
Hmm.
And some of those people are great, but you have to be able to help them to see. You have
That's
to
right.
be able to stretch them. They have to be willing to stretch. I think what you talked about, if I can pull it together, Kyle and Johnny, is the curiosity. Are they staying curious about
Mm,
themselves and the work that they're doing? And then you can work with that.
yeah, that's huge. I think you know, I stall a little bit on this because like the curiosity, that is exactly right. Like curiosity is what breeds a lot of creativity, right? Like when you
Yeah.
ask questions and you want to be part of something, you effectively show it through your curiosity, right? Which is great and amazing. Um, I am speaking of curiosity, I am curious about like though one thing that I want to ask about your situation about your teams is it sounds like you had a lot of time with your teams, right? Have you been through a lot of turnover in your organization with teams, or are you staying with the same team? Because that is a vital point in order to build that trust and maturity, right?
It absolutely is. And I think that's also the nature of the industry too. There's just so much churn in general. I don't think I've ever been on one team where it stayed the same. Uh, Honestly, even around a year mark is usually when somebody comes or goes, in my
Hmm.
experience, has been
What
just the
about team
normal
shakeups, not
expectation.
individual losses? All right, how long does your team stay together? And that means like you're going to lose one or two in attrition here and there.
Yeah, that's what I would say is about around the 1 year mark is when I've seen on average somebody will come and go, a team member will come and go. Is that what you're asking? Either like a
Well, there's a
product
difference
owner
between
or a
attrition being
tester
like
or,
one person, yeah, versus like wholesale teams working on different products or getting a whole nother
Mm.
team. Like you are assigned to a
Getting
different team.
reassigned.
Yeah, you are
okay,
assigned to a
yeah.
different team.
Uh, it hasn't, I've been, so on in the role that I'm in now, it's been a little over 5 years. I've been on the same two teams. I've had to step in for, one or two teams, just, while they were trying to fill in. But ultimately I've been assigned on the other one. In a previous assignment, I jumped around probably on three different teams over the course of my 4 year stay there. And again, I think it's just to be expected. It's more, it
Hmm.
makes it challenging for sure. I think it's, stating the obvious. The more disruption and change that you get, the harder it is to have that sense of stability and trust and
I
consistency on
think,
the team. And that's what's needed for maturity, right?
yeah.
But the the ones you can create allies with, at the beginning, the ones that you can get buy-in with, if we're just continuing on that conversation, I've seen it be enough, to be honest. I mean, of course, on any team, you're only as successful as your weakest link, but that doesn't change what value you have. It really just, even if you get a whole new team and they're all fresh, very much green, even if they're just new newbies, like fresh out of college, or if they're seniored and they don't want to change at all, it doesn't change the effect that you have. And if they are willing to stay, if they want to be part of a team, you'll have that, you don't have, you just might have to take more time and be patient with yourself. But yes, that's just where the mental hurdles come, and just the time and the support that you have. So you got to take care of yourself as a scrum master too, since there's such a big relational people aspect of that. You got to have your outlets. You got to be able to take the good with the bad, and just know that that's what you got to be passionate about when you walk into work. Never knowing what to expect and what people are bringing to work that day.
Yeah, I
Is
think
that helpful? I mean, I feel like it was more obvious what I was stating, unless you want something specific.
no, 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 no. I think you were on point there. Like that was good. One of the
And
things I think
it's not
I
just, sorry, I was also going to say, it doesn't matter how consistent the teams are. Freaking management changes way more than the team, I've noticed. You can have
well,
so much churn and turn at a management level, and that causes so much disruption. We could talk about that, probably opens up a whole new can of worms, but even just the dynamic that does, and how this whole concept of change management, um, how that could mess up or disrupt the team too, could be just as impactful as if there was churn on the team itself. So for what it's
yeah,
worth.
I think when it comes to again, it's about the friction that's applied, right? Like a well-oiled machine operates very well, right? But then when you apply friction in places that it cannot withstand the heat, then you end up with issues, right? A team will struggle if the strategy is not clear. A team will struggle if leadership is inconsistent. Things like that will happen. Again, it goes back to the keep your own autonomy as much as you can, but really then focus on getting the team engaged, regardless of what the outside noise is. And that's what it
Yep.
sounds like you were saying. Um, you had an advantage, which is good, of teams that were able to mature together at least long enough where because Scrum and at like development teams, I think in general operate best when they have time to mature, right? It's the whole norming, storming. I forgot what's his name. That
Tuckmans,
yeah,
yeah.
Tuckman's, and like
Yeah.
there's a lot of truth in that, right? Given the opportunity to the team to struggle in conflict and then be able to build on that conflict and build character as a team will allow the team to be better in the future. Unfortunately, from my experience, I've had teams where I've been like, we have got great success. I think we have an amazing future, and then something disrupts that, right? And then that team gets switched off someplace else. Um, so that was really great. But what I think we could wrap up on, honestly, is something that is similar to this in the sense that, like, you know, as a Scrum Master, you have talked a lot about like really the interpersonal, kind of the skills that you need to get the team motivated, to get the team to trust you, to get the team to trust each other. I think what would be an interesting question for you to like kind of like wrap up on is what do you think are the top three values a Scrum Master brings to a team?
I think for me, I think I play more of the role of coach than any of the other hats that we wear. So that's first and foremost. You really want to be able to try to find the potential in them, or try to help them see the potential that they have, and expand and build on that, and just being a good soundboard for them. Be that steadfast, reliable structure, and might be the only thing they have. When they come in, they know that they can, somebody who's going to reach out to you and trust you, even ping you on the side of, good, bad, or otherwise. I think that's awesome. I think another one is, if I could just say, like, just the guy who's willing to be that guy. I will always, that's one of my best things that I can offer the team is, if you need to reach out, or if you have a blocker, I'm like, hey, I'll be that guy. What can I do to solve that? I think the more that I can model that behavior of being proactive and being willing to have the hard conversations, it's just as important to be able to have in the team as it is without, and that's how I can shield them. I can help them talk to a manager or try to smooth things over, even if it's anything. Honestly, you have to be willing to put yourself in the chaos and be able to handle it and show them that you can handle
Mhm.
it. And advocate and protect the team from that. So if it's the product managers not getting what they need, if it's the Scrum Master or other Scrum Masters that aren't getting what they need, if it's the developers or the QA testers, you just have to be the one to be able to step into that and be the first to say something about it. Don't wait for anybody else. So you have to be that guy, more or less, or girl. That's been I've had the most success for. It's not always fun, it's never like, but you're there because you're doing it on their behalf, and then usually that helps. It's not always great responses, but if you're willing to take that risk for your team and for yourself, I think it's really rewarding. The third thing, man, I really think it is just being able to be adaptable. You can
Mhm.
you can love Scrum, but you really have to love the aspect of it, love the people, love the idea of
Hmm.
bringing people together. And it is super helpful if you have rewarding and successful experiences to fall back in, like, oh yeah, that's the magic that keeps me going. Um, but you also have to know your limits too. You know what I mean? You have to be able to say, okay, well, this has been a crapshoot from day one, or this is not sustainable for me. You have to know what your limitations are, and also what your there's not we haven't talked about this, but what's next for a Scrum Master. If you want to move on, if there's
Yeah.
anything beyond that, what does that look like? And honestly, I've stayed a Scrum Master as long as I have because that path really hasn't been lined for me, at least from it would change, my responsibilities and role would change so drastically different from a scrum master to my next level that I like being where I'm at. You know what I mean? I don't want
Hmm.
that to change. I don't want to focus on something so different. But anyway, for what it's worth, I think those were the main three.
I love number two.
So
Gotta be that guy. It's great.
Yep.
yeah, that was we gotta put that in a book somewhere. Um, no, so like I'm jealous because I want to work with you, Darren. Like I miss like this critical understanding and this level of concern for your coworkers and the
Hmm.
cohesiveness of teams. I miss that. And honestly, the skill set you're talking about does translate well into a functional leadership position because much of what you're doing is exactly that. Um,
Yeah.
but the what that you brought up, like what does the next step in a career look like? Honestly, Johnny, there should be a part two that we talk about that because that was actually one of the things I was considering pursuing. Um, but no, like uh,
I think that would
we
be,
need to find it. We need to find a spot for you somewhere, Darren, because I miss working with you.
yeah, I want to kind of echo those statements. I I think I framed my vision and view of how, team dynamics and teamwork is almost lockstep with what you're saying. I firmly believe that's why I said I feel like it's 80% people management, right? You have to be a person that wants to help, right? When you're a scrum master slash product leader of some kind, right? You want to help the team. And these guys, or girls, I've always said that developers to me are more like artists than they are, you know, like doctors, mainly because they're taking a lot of this information and they're, putting, their ideas onto a slab of stone or on a piece of paper, right? Like we are not the people who are doing the actual work, but they are taking what we're saying and then translating that and then saying, okay, hey, look, I've created an outcome for you. Does this work? And there's a lot of art and finesse in that. And I believe that you have to be engaged and really connected with them in a way that helps, fuel that creative fire, right? And that's exactly how I feel like I just think you mentioned a lot of points that I was thinking about this and I was like, I've mentioned this to Kyle multiple times, but I really think like in business, an organization will treat the people in that business as if they were machines creating widgets. These widgets are just going to be pumped out regardless of the team and regardless of the product. They're just going to pump out these widgets, right? That's the whole thing where we talked about comparing story points across teams or like how you manage teams differently. One can be a Kanban team, one can be a Scrumban team, one can be an Agile team or a Scrum team, right? And so, like you, as the product leader, as the agile leader, as their coach, you're going to adapt whatever it is that they're doing, whatever it is that they are, into a framework that will help them be successful. And that connection to humans, to people, is also the reason why I love working in the space that we work in, right? Because I think that's really interesting. That's a puzzle for us to solve, right? We get a team and they operate one certain way and we have a lot of success. And then you get another team and they will not be successful if you cookie cutter those techniques. And
Mm.
it's just fascinating. Kyle and I have had many discussions about this. When we worked at a company together, we had, I don't know, what was it, like 15 total teams. You had like, I think it was like eight
Yeah,
or
we
nine
did.
product owners, something like that. And we
Add
would
up to
have
11 of them, yeah.
yeah, we would have like weekly discussions about how each team operated because what was successful on my team wouldn't necessarily work on another team. And so you have to be in touch with that EQ more than anybody else when it comes to this company. And so like leaders will look at it as like, you're just a widget machine, whereas we are like, no, that's not how this works. Like I got a guy about to create the David out of this slab of stone, right? I don't want him to create a bicycle. Like that's you got to be connected to the team to be able to do that. These are, to me, I think they're more like artists than not. So I think that was really cool that we got to hear your perspective.
Awesome. I'm glad I could help. It's definitely a challenging role because you're basically put into that people type management, but you have no authority. They don't report to you. They don't have
No
to listen to
authority.
anything you say. So how do you influence, and add value that way? But yeah, great discussion, you
Yeah.
guys.
Oh God, we could talk about
Yeah.
that and have a whole other discussion.
There you go.
Well,
Teaser.
thank you very much, Darren.
Social
We
authority,
appreciate
not
it.
functional.
Yeah,
You got it.
exactly. We loved
Thank you
having
guys.
you
This is
on.
great.
Yeah, very insightful, really cool. This would be really interesting to put out there. I'd love to get more feedback from people, especially Scrum Masters, and see if they're having similar experiences to you. I think you are definitely what I would think on the more successful tier of my experiences with people. Like, I think you've got a good space. I hope that you continue that success, man, because that's a great place to be in and around your team, regardless of what company you're in. Like, I agree with Kyle. Like, I'd love to work for you. I'll work with you.
Well, I don't
Yeah.
want to sugarcoat anything. It doesn't come without a lot of labor intensive work, but yeah, it's how you choose to show up for sure. Um, and I'm happy to if you have any comments or if you receive feedback, please send them my way too. I'm happy to continue conversation for sure.
Yeah, when we release this, I would love to hear what other people say. And then, of course, I'll, send out links and stuff so that people can see it.
Awesome.
And then you'll be able to hopefully engage with the community. So that's great.
Love it.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you very much and I appreciate it. That is our podcast. I want to thank Darren for coming on and Kyle for being adaptable. Kyle is not in his home. He is, living out the dream of being in his mom's basement. And
Hmm.
so,
Yeah.
I hope there's much
It's
more success
devotion.
for you in the future, buddy.
Thank you. Didn't we talk? We were talking about how adaptability is key. All right. I'm just trying to live that.
You are embodying that vision. Yes. All right. Thank you, everybody,
Happy to be here.
and have a good one.